So many businesses quietly fail because people make emotional decisions disguised as logic ones. Yet the highest performers seemed able to handle pressure differently, think clearly in chaos, and grow without completely losing themselves in the process. Why do you think that is? And how do you actually remove emotion from decision making when your identity, finances, reputation, and future are all tied to the outcome?
So I think most the way we're set up, the way we're programmed is to think with our emotion. And unfortunately, when our emotion leads us, we lose clarity, we lose focus, we tend to be much more reactive than proactive. And it just really sets us up for a whole other set of problems when we're really just trying to focus on our business. And when we let that get in the way, it just creates a new set of problems.
Why do you think so many new entrepreneurs let emotions control their decisions?
I think because that's the way we're set up. We're always set up to chase, to go, to not really just step back and think. And we're always just, I got to get it done. I got to get it done. I got to get it done. I got to move. And as much as you think that's healthy, it's not. Because when you're in that mode of, I got to move, you're not really stopping and saying, whoa, where am I moving to? Why am I moving there? What's the benefit to move there? What's the detriment? Maybe I shouldn't be moving there. And we don't stop. It's just the way we are, where we're on this constant treadmill and we don't get off of it. And then sometimes by the time we do get off it, it's too late. It's too late to really fix anything because I just got dug myself in such a hole, I can't get out of it anymore.
Emotional decisions often solve immediate discomfort while creating long term damage. I know as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as just an employee, sometimes it's hard to control our emotions in certain, you know, circumstances. And how many times do we end up saying the wrong thing to a spouse, to a business owner, that if we would have just had control of our emotion in that moment, later down the road, we'd be in a different spot.
It's very hard to control your emotions. It's very hard. It's a discipline. It's work, and it's fun. You brought up a great point. It goes across everything, right? It could be with the coworker, could be with the spouse. You know, you need to like take that 1 second and stop because it's funny. We're really talking about business and stuff, but let's talk about a spouse. I don't know if you're married, but I'm married a long time. I'm married 35 years, and you know, it's just the nature of people. How often someone's going to say, "Hey, you know, why'd you do that? Or you upset me, or you this." And the default reaction is to protect yourself, right? Someone tells you, "Oh, how dare you do that?" Whatever the case may be. And the default is, "What do you mean? Why'd you do that? Stop." If you stopped for 1 second and didn't answer, it will go away. And if you don't, who knows? It could spiral into who knows what. Spiral into a divorce. I don't know. Or in work. Right. Your boss tells you something and he ticks you off. And you want to tell him, wait a minute, how dare you say that to me? Do you know how hard I've been working for this company and what I've been doing for you guys and I kill myself about maybe you can lose your job for that. But if you stop for a minute and say, well, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm walking away. And later on, once you're in control of your emotions, and you stop and think, how do I want to handle this? Maybe it's better not to handle it. That's when you need to step out. Maybe it's better not to handle this situation. Let me just leave it. Or maybe it's better to handle it in a certain way. That's why they always tell you, you shoot out an email, you get upset at somebody and you hit click and you hit send, that's it. You can't bring that email back. Read your email 3 times before you send it. Let's say you're upset. Someone did something in work to bother you. And you said, and you start typing up at the email and you send, boom. You could cause yourself. You don't know what you're going to cause yourself. You need to stop and think. And it's. By the way, it's not easy. It's a lifetime of work, but it needs to happen If a person really wants to be successful and he really wants to grow, you got to get this framework.
Yeah. So in prepping for this podcast, I wrote down a few things that I could think of that business owners could do. Before I read those to you, I guess with the email, it's a great example that you brought up because I think with emails, even nowadays with social media, a lot of your communications with your boss, employees could be just over a phone or through a text. And before you send that mad email or, saying that you're frustrated about this and that, and like growing up, they always said like if you're getting picked on or something, if you have nothing to say, just walk away. So obviously you can't do that when you're texting and stuff. But I do think something that I try to do is if I'm in that situation is wait a day or two. And then once you calm down, once you're in a different setting, maybe you had dinner, maybe you're just hangry, and then go back, reapproach that, and then send the email. Because like you said, once you send that email or that text or that tweet, that's it. You're done.
You're done. See, and so I'll ask you. So you're doing a smart thing. How have you seen that work for you when you've took that day, or you had that meal, and then you reacted? How did that work for you?
Good. I've noticed over the years when everyone has different moods, different things affect them during the day. And, me when I'm hungry is a different person than when I'm not hungry. And it's not like, don't speak to me. I'm not, that kind of hungry. But just I'm a little bit more irritable. And it's like, okay, well, this probably isn't the best time. Maybe I had a long day at work and I come home and those aren't the best times to do it. So for me, it's like, okay, I know now it's like those are not the times to give responses or just wait a little bit. Wait until the next day, the next morning, you wake up in the morning, you feel refreshed, things are feeling better, and it's a new day. So, yeah, because I've just learned even with, Twitter and any response that you send out, it's when you first see it, whether it's, a bad comment, say on Instagram, or it's, a frustrating email, maybe something didn't go your way, or you feel like, it's against you. That first emotion that you feel is okay to feel, but that's not, in my opinion, is not the best way to respond, is how you feel right off the bat.
100%. 100%. Yeah, for sure. Because yeah. And I'd love to know how many times, like, had you answered that email or that text or reacted right away, it's probably in a totally different scenario. And it's probably
Yeah.
not a good
Because,
one
yeah,
either.
no. And when you go back and look at it days later, years later, and you look at it and you're thinking, like, what did I even do that for? It wasn't even that big of a deal. Now,
Yeah.
when you switch over to, business owners and some of the decisions they make, they can be, I guess, bigger ordeals or bigger problems. And these are a few that I wrote down that could be some of the biggest ones that business owners could possibly make. Hiring emotionally, reacting emotionally to criticism, making panic decisions during slow periods, comparing themselves to others online, chasing status instead of their purpose. And what's dangerous is a lot of those decisions do feel logical in that moment, but most people don't sabotage their business intentionally. They sabotage it emotionally because of some of those I wrote down. I'm sure you have a lot more you could talk about, but those are just some of the ones I was thinking about that, they're emotional in that moment and they probably shouldn't be.
By the way, you just rattled off. You could probably write a book on each one of those, and you went through them very quickly, which is good. I mean, you have a lot there. I'd love for you to go through them a little slower because I
Yes,
want to
yes.
comment on
We
those
can do that.
because you really
Okay,
said
yep.
unbelievable things you brought up.
Hiring emotionally.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. High emotion. Guess what? If you're interviewing someone, they look good, they look sharp, they look like they have the package, but you really didn't dig down, right? So that can affect you for sure.
Reacting emotionally to criticism.
So I'll tell you, if you're a leader, it's a big problem because your ego, right? Right now, right. So someone criticized you. And let's say you're a leader, or even if you're an entrepreneur, to whatever it is, but when you have ego involved in something, you'll never make a clear decision because, right, it's not a popularity contest. I've worked with, I still work today, and I've worked for different leaders. I'm more of a senior type of guy, but I've seen leaders that if you tell them something that is wrong, they get offended. They get they get offended and they take it personally. And hello, like, what are you taking? I'm here. You hired me. You're paying me a lot of money to help you. I'm giving you advice. I'm telling you what needs to be fixed. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you. And if I want to coddle you because, imagine guys working for someone and he sees this guy has an ego and I can't criticize him. First of all, I'm not criticizing you. I'm trying to help your business. I'm helping to make why are we in business? Why everyone's in business for one reason. Why is everyone in business? I'll ask
To
you.
make money.
Why is everyone make money? That's it. I'm here to make money. And if you make money, I make money. If you lose money, I lose money. I'm here to help you. So when a leader takes criticism personally, it's a big problem. His business will never grow. You got to get the ego out. Ego's got to go out.
Yeah. One thing,
And
even with growing this podcast and talking to people like you, one thing I
yeah,
try to ask is like, tell me what to do better with this podcast. Like, how would you have liked me to done it different? Because you just got to keep learning and learning and learning. And
yeah.
yeah, like you said, you're there to help them. And I understand, yes, in the moment they might feel like they're top guy in the shop or whatnot, and you're coming in and telling them what they're doing wrong and whatnot. But there's also probably a reason why you're there. Something is off to begin with, and you're there trying to help them fix it. Again, at the end of the day, to make money.
Yeah, it's funny. I've always said a good leader thinks he needs to know all the answers, and it's not true. He needs to ask the right questions and put the right people around him to answer them. That's a leader. So yeah, that's a very, very, very important point. What else? You had a couple of other very good points. Yeah. What else? Yeah, it's a
Making panic decisions in slow periods.
yeah, same thing. Right. Panic. Stop. I always say you have to, and one of the keys to really this framework really working is you almost have to take yourself out of the picture and make yourself like almost like an out of body experience. Like you're a third person in the room. It's funny. I do a lot of business coaching, and a lot of times the guy's gonna have a challenge and he doesn't have an answer. And then when I say, well, let me ask you a question. What if, and I present the problem as it's my problem, my challenge. You shouldn't say problem. By the way, a problem weighs you down. A challenge, you're up for a challenge. You're down for a problem. You should never say problem, actually. Words are very powerful. So, and if I spin it as it's my challenge, and what do you think I should do? I don't know what to do. I'm having this challenge. I have this issue. I have this. And all of a sudden, the guy has answers. Why do you have an answer? Because it's not you anymore. Now you're helping somebody else, and you're looking at the problem, the challenge. I'm saying problem. You're looking at the challenge in a different perspective. So it's very important when you're having that crunch time. And you know what? There is. You're also saying something very valid. You know what? There is pressure in business, and there are times where things are coming down the pipe and the guns to your head, and you're going to make that decision you may regret. So you have to take yourself out, almost like a third party, and look at it over an overview, like an eagle's view, and you'll probably make a better decision. You will not you probably you will make a better decision.
Yeah, that's a good point because you watch movies or sometimes on the outside, in real life you see problems, and then because you're looking at it, like you said, bird's eye view, third point perspective. But those same problems that you see that other people have, you also could have or do have, but you don't make that decision because there's emotion to it. And like you said, take yourself out of it. And it almost takes all that pressure off of you when you start making those decisions that way because there is emotion with those sorts of decisions when you're in them, and sometimes you're in them and you don't see them.
100%.
But
100%.
if you take yourself out, I like that, the bird eye view, because how many times you watch in a movie and like you know what's going to happen, and you're like, don't go in that room.
Yeah.
And like obviously that's not the best idea or best example, but
Yeah.
in that moment, if you were in that moment, it would be completely different. But the next one I had was comparing themselves to others online. It kind of goes back to reacting to the emotional criticism, but comparing themselves to others online was the other one. And then
Oh,
chasing status instead of purpose.
so you know the explosion of the internet and everything. There's so many pluses, but there's so many minuses. So many minuses. Like, I mean, the world. Look, if I would never have seen you, I've never known you, I've never talked to you. So that's a great thing. You get to meet people and get to see things. But on the other side, it's so often it's comparison. Comparison. My mother always says, I'm very. I learn a lot from my mother. Um, my parents got divorced when I was 5. That was a long time ago. Divorce wasn't common. My father moved to California when I was 9, and my mother raised me and my brother and my sister, and she did a great job. She was a very positive person, very strong person, and she taught me a lot. One thing she always said was, comparison is suicide. I'll give you 2 lines. Comparison is suicide, and what other people think of me is none of my business. And today, all we're doing is, like you said, status versus purpose, right? I need to, wow, and I need to see. Look at this guy. He's an entrepreneur just like me, and he's sitting on his boat, and he's doing this, and he's doing that, and you get yourself all jammed up for absolutely no reason. Because the truth is, you're competing against one person. You're competing against yourself. Your job is to make the best you. That's your job. It's not, and the problem is when we're sitting and scrolling, I was talking to someone last week, and great job, nice person, has a relationship. I feel like a loser. Why do I feel like a loser? Because I saw 3 of my friends went over here on vacation. But you know what? First of all, you're not even seeing the whole picture. Everything is set up to create, this magic scenario. You're taking the photo op and the this and the that. But when you're sitting and comparing yourself to other people, first of all, you're never going to achieve your purpose. That's for sure. Because your purpose is going to be their purpose. That's not your purpose. I was speaking last week to a bunch of college students, and I said to them, the most important thing you have to do is to do what you like and be happy with what you're doing. Don't chase what you think is hot. Because guess what? Let's say if a guy's an introvert and he wants to go into real estate, you're not a salesman, you're an introvert, you're never going to be happy with yourself. And when we're scrolling and looking and saying, oh, this is what I should be, no, you should be what you should be. And by comparing yourself to others, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get there, and you're probably going to be miserable your whole life. You're going to be depressed, and to go on social media and stuff, is it good to learn? If you're going to educate yourself, yeah, it's great. If you're looking to compare and see, oh, let me see how I'm doing today, because let me see how this guy's doing, and then I'll know. No, that's not how you're going to know. That's how you're going to get yourself into a bigger trap.
Back to you said the yacht and seeing people doing better than you. As a business owner, if you say you're scrolling on your phone and you see, they're doing this and that, driving the Lamborghinis, all this stuff you see on social media.
Yeah.
And then you go back to your business and you start thinking, well, what do I need to do to get there as fast as possible? And then you start making, I know, like we're talking about emotion, but you start making those decisions fully off of emotion. And we make some crazy decisions off of emotion. That could take you down such a bad road, whether it's, making obviously bad decisions, but, selling things, getting into things you shouldn't be doing, maybe crossing the line of, is this legal or illegally? Because when you try to grow stuff faster than, what it should be grown, you do have to start doing things that sometimes are borderline legal or illegal, or, if you have as a person, if you have certain standards you hold by, sometimes you like, well, I guess I'll let this slide today because I can make excess amount, just because you want that life for that person that probably just rented that yacht to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to
That's
ask you personally, how do you separate emotion from like logic during high pressure situations?
so I'll always take myself out. I'll stop. I'll take myself out of the situation and take that bird's eye view. You mentioned about values. If a person really has strong values, he's not gonna grade that line when he sees the guy driving the Lamborghini in the lot, because that's also part of removing emotion. When you have strong values, your emotion's not gonna get you. I read an interesting story a few years ago. There was a Orthodox Jewish guy. His name is Kivi Bernhard. He wrote a book called Leopardology, I think it's called, and Microsoft wanted him to be the keynote speaker at their event. I forgot how many years ago it was. Um, and he got a call from one of the executive VPs and said, "We want you to be the keynote speaker." He said, "No problem. Sure, great, love it." Gives him the date. It's a Saturday. It's a Sabbath. He's an Orthodox Jew. He's a Sabbath observer. He said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it." Guy says, "Okay." He figures he's negotiating. And he's a top speaker. He's probably getting six figures anyway. He says, "No problem. We'll double the speaking fee." He says, "You don't understand. I can't do it." He says, "Okay, okay, blank check. We need you to come. Blank check." He says, "You're not listening. You can give me all the money in the world. I don't care. I can't. I won't do it." The end of the story was they moved the event to start Sunday because they really wanted him to be the keynote. This VP was once on a plane with Bill Gates, and he was telling him the story, and he said, "You see what happens when you have something money can't buy? And when you have real strong values, the emotion won't get to you, because I don't give in to my emotion. I do what I need to do, and I stay focused what I need to stay focused on." And now, something. Let's say you see this guy with the Lamborghini and the yacht. So you want to think clearly. Okay, I'd like to have a success. I'd like to be more successful. What do I need to do logically? What am I doing now? Let me step back and see, what am I doing in my business that I could do better? What's holding me back? Now, if you want to use it as, the problem is when emotion gets involved, you're going to use that as, "I'm terrible, I'm no good, I suck, I'm this." But if you want to use it as a motivator and say, "Let me really take a step back and analyze my business and see what am I doing well, what am I not doing well," and removing the emotion, okay, you can use it to help you, but most times you won't. Most times it's going to jam you up because you're going to let emotions dictate, and you're not going to step back.
Neuroscientists have studies that show that stress activities in the amygdala, which is like the emotional center of your brain, actually decreases activity in the prefrontal cortex responsible for rational thinking. So, in a way, stress literally makes people think worse.
Yeah, for sure. Number one killer in America is stress. That's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I think people also romanticize the entrepreneurial lifestyle online, and most people actually never see the mental pressure behind all of that. And with talking about mental battles and entrepreneur people, most of them are ambitious. They want something, better, grow something, create something. But what would you say most people don't see in entrepreneurs that are trying to grow things, build something that, people don't even think of, outside of seeing these people online?
When you're an entrepreneur, there's let me step back. I think most people don't see that it's a day to day. It's a grind. It's a struggle. It's not overnight. I think, again, back to the social media. Everyone thinks, "Oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to make $12 trillion." I think that's what people don't see. So they run to get into it, not realizing, hey, you're starting to build a business, and building a business like building a house, right? You drive down the block, you see a beautiful house. Guess what? That house didn't start out like that house. That house, they poured concrete, they built a foundation, they laid bricks, they did this. It takes time. I think that's what a lot of people don't see. They just love to hear, that the buzzword today is entrepreneur and side hustle and this and by the way, it's all great. I think most people don't realize what they're getting into, and either they're going to get stressed out and crash, or they'll never they'll get stressed out, crash, and never make it, or they'll give up too soon. You need patience. You're building a business. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and I think that's what a lot of people don't see and don't realize.
Yeah, I think Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus says it's the best. It's a climb because, like you said, to build a house, there's so many steps to get there. And even with people on social media, these people that blow up, what you don't see is the work they put in 5, 6, 7 years before, everyone else
Yeah.
says, "Oh, look, they blew up." And it's like, well, they've been working hard the last 6 years with no one saw it then, but they just continued to go after it. Work, work, work. Because the only way you can't fail is if you don't give up. If you keep going after it, whatever that thing is, and you keep going and going and going, who knows? Maybe it will take you 20 years, 50 years. But the day you give up, that dream dies. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen without you working for it, going after it. And for me personally, like that's something that keeps me motivated is knowing that these things I want to see grow and do. If I give up, if I stop, because they are hard. It's not the easiest thing in the world. But if I
No,
give
it's
up,
hard. It's hard. It is hard. You have to ignite it. It's
it
hard.
is. Yeah.
I forgot who
The
said
higher
it. Yeah.
the higher someone climbs, the harder it is for them to admit that they're struggling. And like you said, when you go in, you try to help these business owners or, just leaders. It's hard for them to take criticism because, the higher you work up the corporate ladder or whatever it is, grow a business and, someone comes in and, sometimes it is hard to admit you're struggling because
Very hard.
there's
Very hard.
emotion.
Because
There's
you think you're
emotion.
failing.
Yes, yes. Do you think hustle culture, in America nowadays is helping or hurting entrepreneurs?
I think it's how you want to define it. I think, it's a very big cliche, but I really think it's true that, especially today, you need to work smarter, not harder. So the hustle culture may lead you to believe that you got to be on it 24/7 and you got to push and you got to. I don't think so. I think really, again, take the emotion out, take a step back, and see what you can do to work smarter. Because once you see how to work smarter, you won't work as hard. You have a better work-life balance. Again, another cliche, but it's not. You know what I mean? Everyone loves to talk about this work-life balance and mental health, and these are all like the cliche buzzwords today, but they're really, they're not buzzwords. It's real. And if you're in this hustle culture thinking that you need to be hustling 24/7, you're gonna fry yourself. You're gonna fry yourself. You need to work smarter, not harder. And again, by removing the emotion and taking a step back, you'll figure out how to work smarter and not harder.
Yeah, because if you don't, potentially
Yeah,
you
you're gonna
lead
be
to
fried
burnout.
toast. Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a man living in New York City, obviously it's a different lifestyle than where I live and where a lot of people live. It's go, 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 go. Everyone's kind of out for themselves. And like when I travel to New York, I'm there maybe 2 to 3 days max, and I'm ready to get out. That's enough for me. But as a man who's from New York, how did that shape your mindset and approach to business?
It's funny. In a way, I'll tell you, I don't know because I've always been in it. I mean, this is the only thing I know. Um, there's definitely look. There's definitely an energy in the city. There's definitely a buzz. It's a constant move. Um, And it's hard to, again, it's all I know, but it's the same thing. It's also something you got to use that energy the right way. You have to use the energy the right way.
Yeah, I think your environment either expands your mindset or slowly limits it. And I heard this cool story. I don't know if it's true or not. I believe it is. So when the men that fought in World War I came back, it was either World War I or World War II, came back to America. While they were over there fighting, they got addicted to drugs and all sorts of things. And when they came back to the United States, most of them quit. They weren't addicted, they weren't using. And what they came to figure out was the environment that you're in shapes you.
Mm.
So when they're over there, they're in the high stress, fighting war. They got addicted to these drugs. They used them. They're around those kind of friends, all that environment. So when they came back to the United States, they all were going, back to their home life, and different environment, and they weren't addicted anymore. And I think it's great for if you are addicted to something or you are struggling with something, change your environment. Switch it up, get new friends, try new hobbies, because yeah, you can try to say quit drinking or try to, we're talking mostly business stuff today. So let's say you want to stop whatever it is with the business. It's like, okay, well, maybe you need outside of work, you shouldn't hang out with your work friends, and then you wouldn't be talking about work stuff outside of work and certain things like that, because it is your environment really shapes you. And like you said, it's all in how you think. It's a buzz, but you could use it in a bad way or you can use it in a positive way. What
That's
advice
such a
would you
great,
give someone
yeah.
What what advice would you give someone trying to say grow a business without losing themselves in the process?
First, I just want to go back to what you said before because you said it's a very powerful um, point of really environment is everything. My grandmother used to always tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Who you are. So I just want to get to that point for 1 second again because it's just really so important. You really who you hang out with, where you hang out, how you hang out. It's just really just an important point. I just want to just elaborate on a little bit more just how important environment is and the people that you're around with. Surround yourself with positive people, with up people, with good people. The more staying with negative people. Look, sometimes you have family and stuff. That's a different story, but your outside circle, you want to always be around up people, positive people, strong people. It's really, really important. It has a strong reflection. Um, and now just repeat the question. I'm sorry, because I just was really, that was a great point. What did you just ask me again? I forgot.
Yep. What advice would you give someone who is trying to grow a business without losing themselves in the process? Because we spoke about, burnout, you know, hustle culture lifestyle. To some people they don't even want to try to say get into that lifestyle because they don't want to go down those bad roads. So or negative roads. So what would you suggest to them?
I think what we said before, you have to know it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you know what? It could take, like you said it before, by the way, you know, go talk to the guy that made it overnight. He didn't make it overnight, and he's going to tell you how hard he worked and all the years and the this and the that. It's a marathon. Don't put yourself under a gun that doesn't exist. You don't have to make it in a year or 2 or 5. You have to keep moving forward. The main thing is, am I moving forward every day? That's the main thing. And I got to know it's a long play. The most of the time you get the burnout and you don't have that work-life balance and the stress is because you think I got to do it now. I saw the guy on Instagram. I saw the guy on TikTok. I got to get it done. No, you don't. You need to move forward every day and be happy in your accomplishments. Again, what did we say before? It's you versus you. Did I do everything today that I needed to do? You're not getting everything, by the way, and you're not a robot. As much as AI is taking over, you're not an AI, you're not a robot. Do what you can do and be happy with the accomplished for the day, and that's it. Shut off and move forward and know it's a long-term play. That's what I would tell you the biggest thing is to know it's a long-term play.
Yeah, one of the hardest things to do is to wake up early in the morning, day after day, going after this goal, grow a business, and you don't see results, day after day after day. But that is the grind, and those are the years that I think build you as a man and build you as a person to become like I'm a godly person. So when I think everything obviously has a reasoning and things behind it. So it's like as you are growing, you are learning lessons. And then, sometimes the reason you're not where you need to be or where you want to be right now is because you couldn't handle those issues. You couldn't handle those problems. You wouldn't even know what to do with that money. You would blow it in the wrong ways. I know me personally, like if I would have had the money, certain, amount of money that I wanted 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have any money now anyways because I would have blown it in stupid ways. And I'm still in that, say grind season of, waking up, getting after it, not seeing, say, huge results. But I try to be as appreciative and thankful, like you said, like I get to talk to so many people and learn. And it's like one of those things, if you don't fall in love with the process, and it, like you said, cliche sayings and things you hear, but it's so true because if you do not fall in love with the process, you'll probably never see the finished product because you will probably get burnt out. You'll probably give up and just stop going after it because most of these things that you go after, I know I said this before, but you're not going to see it next week. You're not going to see it next month. It's going to take years and years to grow, to build. But if you enjoy it, the process, learning, it's going to benefit you and hopefully not lead to burnout.
So just to go back, that's why I think also, like when I was talking to these kids a couple of weeks ago, it was, that's why the first thing is you got to do what you like because it's very challenging. Like you can't go after what's high. You have to, what do you like? Because if you don't do what you like, the passion's going to go by very quickly. And you know what? It is hard. You know what? We're humans. We're people. It is hard. It is frustrating. You want to get it done, and it is a grind. So, like you said before, first if you don't have the passion, forget it. It's definitely not going to happen. If you do have the passion, um, I think it's very important to know. One of the mantras I say to myself is, "I'm responsible for the action, not the result." Now, you mentioned before you're a godly person. Um, I'm a godly person too. I think faith is very important because, um, once you know there's a higher power, and again, whatever religion you are, whatever you practice, once you know there's a higher power, then you do know. You know what? I'm not responsible for the result. That's in God's hands. I'm responsible for my action. I think that makes it a lot easier when challenges come that you're able to handle them. I think faith is very important in business. I do. I mean, obviously, you can't go tell someone to be a faithful person, but I just think in general, I think it's a very important thing to have faith. I think knowing that you're responsible for your actions and doing what you like and having a passion is going to help you go through that grind. Because it is anyone that's going to tell you it's not a grind, it's not true. It is. It's a grind. But if you know that it's a marathon and it's not a sprint, and you know that every day you're moving forward, and you got to learn. Another key is this: you have to, like you said before, you always have to be learning. Something didn't work out, stop. This is again. Now, if you're working with emotion in business, something didn't work out. That's it. You're gonna beat yourself up, and I don't know. Maybe you'll lose a week just because you got so depressed about it. But if you take the emotion out and say, wait, why? Let me take my emotion out. Let me stop and say, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this failure? And now I stopped and I said, oh, I learned 3 things from this. Guess what? The next time that thing comes up, and it's going to come up because that's just life. There's grinds. If now that thing comes up again in a month or in 6 months or in a year, now, oh, wait a minute. You know what? This happened 6 months ago. Now I know how to handle it. And now I learned from it. And now I turned it into a positive. And that's also going to help with the grind.
Yeah. I think something that is interesting is within entrepreneurs and people in that space. I know we've been talking a lot about entrepreneurs, but I think this relates with everyday people as well. It just instead of their business, it'd be your job. But how many people I know Alex Ramosi. I like listening to him, and he was talking about so many entrepreneurs. The thing that motivates them is trying to prove to their younger self or to someone that they are worth something. And he talks about this one person, their whole entire life, whatever that situation was, they were doing this because someone said something way back when they were a kid, or I can't exactly remember how it was. So they spent, 30 years trying to grow this business, and they finally reached that level, and they're like, wow, like, look at me. Basically, like, let me go show this person I did what they said I couldn't do. And they went back to the person and said something like, you remember you saying this or whatever, and the person didn't even remember. And they spent 30 some years trying to grow this thing off that one comment or that one thing. And I do think some of those things, like, I do use stuff like that sometimes to motivate me, but it's not like my whole purpose is, prove this one person wrong. I personally think some of that stuff is good to, like, say, ignite the fire underneath you and get you moving. But obviously you don't want to put all your time and effort into trying to prove someone wrong, because I think that could, you know, do a lot of things mentally, and
Yeah,
I don't
then
know.
you're not doing again. You're not doing it for you again. You're doing it for him. If just like you said, yeah, you want to use it as a catalyst, as a motivator, yeah. But if you're doing it just for him, then it also comes back to what you're saying before. Are you living for status or purpose? So in a certain respect, if you're living for status, you're not going to hit your purpose. So even that guy that did all this to show up the other guy, then you really were living for status, not for purpose. Um, and I think also, I mean, I think another thing, just I wanted to go back to the grind part is, I always have to know, I forgot where I read it, but I know my goal is achievable because others have done it before me. And most of the time that's true. So you have to know also when you're through that grind, you have to know what you're doing is achievable. Yeah, I just want to go back to that for a minute because it just came into my head. So what you're doing is achievable because others have done it before you. And that should keep you going during the grind.
Yeah, I know so many people, they want to go after things, and they have the fear of failing and then getting judged by other people. And it goes back to what we were saying, you're not doing it for yourself. But I think with going after those things, you have the fear of being judged or the fear of failing. But in both of those processes that you go through, if you're not focused about what people think of you, the judgment part doesn't really matter. The fear of failure, I think, is a huge reason why a lot of people don't do a lot of things like swimming, biking, simple day-to-day tasks that
Yeah.
they might have a fear of doing because they don't want to fail. And again, I think some of that, you could have reasons, maybe, as a kid, yeah, I don't know, but you could have more reasons other than just, failure leading back to people judging you or like talking about you. But once you kind of get out of that little matrix in your head of failing because of other people judging you or saying things or making fun of you, you really become, I don't know, it's so freeing because now you're making most of your decisions off of what you want to do and what you want to try. Because if you listen, like you said, the thing you're trying to go after, someone has already done. And if you listen to these successful people, you're never going to meet someone successful, someone that's at the top of, like let's take Elon Musk, for example, the richest guy in the world. And you
Mhm.
go up to him and say, have you ever failed? Like he would probably laugh at you for even asking that question because you fail all the time, over and over and over. And, now his failures are,
Yeah,
get,
I think they say
put on the
most
news and
most
all over the place.
I think most millionaires failed more than once. The difference between the millionaires and today are billionaires is they keep getting up. They keep getting up after they fall. It's funny, you talk about fear. My mother always says fear stands for false evidence appearing real. So often it's just like you said, it's in our mind and it's fake. And the reason that is also is because your default is really your mind wants to protect you and it wants you to be safe. So it keeps you, what Who said this? Some guy, what was his name? Ramez Tubasi. I think he wrote a book. I forgot, but he said when you leave your comfort zone, that's when the magic happens. And it's hard to leave your comfort zone because again, your mind wants to protect you. And that's why it puts that fear in there. But a lot of times that fear is fake. And then you'll live with regret, and you'll just sit and stuck, and you gotta get over the fear. Try a little bit, try something, just to push yourself, just to push yourself over that hump. But it's true. And then you turn around, and your life passed, and you didn't do anything. The saddest, I forgot who said that also, the saddest words where it might have been. Guess what? It may not always work, but if you try and you did your best, it didn't work. Okay, but you tried. You tried. You gave it a shot. You got on the bike. You tried the side hustle. You tried this. You gave it a shot. But to never give it a shot, it's tragic. It's tragic.
Yeah, the most, I saw this, it's like a picture of the graveyard, and it says the most, or not the most, but the cure for cancer, the cure for this, and the invention of this is all laying in this graveyard, because the people that are now dead had that in them, but they never tried to go do it because at the end of the day, probably was fear. And yeah, like you said, might have, or whatever, the scariest words, to say at the end of your life. And there's this, I think it's called a Masogi that I follow. If you see my big calendar behind me, Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesse Itzler, he's big on planning out your years, and he's the one that I kind of got. Yeah, yep. So he's the one that I got it from, and basically every year you pick one life-defining thing to do, and for me they're mostly like fitness goals. It could be starting a business, writing a book, doing a marathon, and you spend 3 to 4 months, maybe half a year. And obviously, if you're growing a business, that's different, like a podcast or writing a book, that's different. But you do one thing that year that you're going to start, and that's your main thing for that year. And you really focus on that. So, like for me, I've done an Ironman marathon. This year, I'm going to do a last man standing. So this one thing every year I pick, and it's something that's going to put you outside your comfort zone. It's something that's going to be hard. You don't know if you can finish it. And as you become older and you become a father, it could be, like he said, he goes on these, and he's the guy that he got it from that did it. He's not like a business owner. He has like a normal 9 to 5, and he goes on these little vacations with his kids every year. No phone, let's get out. We go camping trips, and it's one of those things where someday when you die, it's not going to be, I can remember these 4 or 5 things that I did with my dad, or it's going to be, each year you're going to remember these things because they're going to be like life defining, changing things. You worked hard, you got to experience, mentally, like just the process of growing this and, spending time. And to me, like, that's like, man, that's how I want my life to be, because how many people, they die someday. And I don't do it all. Like, I definitely have fear of doing things as well. Like, I'm not perfect in that side of things. But yeah, but it's one of those things. Once I heard that, yes. And yeah, like, it's just one of those things. It's if you don't do something like that now, maybe give it a try, look into it, because next thing you know, one day you're gonna look back and you're gonna be old and wish you did all these things.
100%.
One thing I'm curious to know how you deal with it, is decompressing outside of your job, especially as an entrepreneur. You really don't have a set schedule. So how do you set boundaries around answering emails, texts, phone calls? Because especially when you're trying to grow something, build it, to me, it's like, how can you on a Friday night at 8 o'clock kind of chill? And it's something I kind of deal with. I've slightly gotten better with trying to set dedicated time to where I'm just like relaxing. Because you want to go, answer, and you never really get caught up. I mean, even people who own a house, or people outside business and entrepreneurs, like, you never get caught up. You always have a to-do list. It's never going to come to an end. So how do you decompress, or how do you set boundaries so your work-life balance is better?
I look. I think everyone. I think it really depends on the person. But like for myself, I think you have to be very rigid in your, and you have to be very disciplined. And you have to shut off shut off your phone, or say, I'm putting it away for 2 hours. Um, I'm going to the gym. I'm going with the fellas. I'm going. I'm doing. I think you just have to be very disciplined in that, because, like you said, you're not getting everything done anyway. Um, Very rarely, especially at night, very rarely is something going to happen. You didn't answer it and you blew it, especially at night. You know what I'm saying? Usually, I mean, at the end of the day, the work is during the day. So if someone sends you a text or an email at 7:30 at night, nothing's happening till the next day anyway. So you could wait, because, like you said, you'll just be so caught up and you're going to burn yourself out. You have to be very. I think that's what it is. You have to be very uh, disciplined in how you set up your work life balance.
Yeah. So I follow Nick Bear. He's as a supplement company,
Hmm.
and I know recently I saw because he has two kids now, and he said about he's trying to do better with social media and those sorts of thing. And so on the weekends, he doesn't get on his phone or he doesn't get on social media at all. And I was like, that's good because it's one of those
It's
things when you
great.
do have kids, you do have to set boundaries because I don't have kids yet, but it is one of those things. You go out and you go to dinner, or you go out and you're on vacation, and you're, let's say Yellowstone for example, and you're there and you're taking in all the amazing things that you can see in natural parks, and then sometimes you look over and you see these kids are running around playing, and this is you look at the parents on their phones and doing their thing, and I think like you're missing out on a moment right now with your kids, like a memory that you could be having to make this better for them. Because what you want to see what TikTok video there is, and to me, I get it, I understand it can be addicting, and like
It
with
is
anything in
addictive.
life,
There's no
there
question.
needs to be boundaries
Oh,
because
forget it.
yeah,
I tell I tell you
that
the truth. My kids are grown already. Like, I would not want to raise kids today. It's pretty scary. It's just with the social media. And, a kid should not have a smartphone till he's probably 18. That's for sure. He should not have a smartphone till he's 18, because you're just throwing so much at them at a young age that they're not learning as well. They're cognitively declining, because they're always looking at that screen. They're not really developing their minds properly. I mean, these are all facts. Um, and plus, how are they going to grow up in a healthy way? So you see kid TikTok things, but whatever it is, and like you said, and even from the parents also, right? You got to disconnect. It's just, again, like we were saying in the beginning of the conversation, for all the good things that we've done, social media, it's really. I was listening to a guy the other day. He was speaking at a conference. It was last year. He said, I'm 30 years old. I'm not married, and most of my friends aren't married. He says, and we don't go to clubs really. We don't dance. You know why not? You know why people don't dance anymore? Because they're afraid they're going to get someone's going to video them, and it's going to go viral, and then get embarrassed. You know why guys don't approach girls so much anymore? Because they're afraid if they do something wrong, it's going to go viral. Uh, Dating apps, the algorithm is trained not for you to meet the best person, to come back. And it's just like he said, we treated this everything like the Wild West, and there was no, I mean, it just hit us too fast. But it's definitely hurting. Again, we're going off point a little bit, but it just really hurts society a lot. It really did. And
yeah
like you
yeah
said, you go into Yellowstone and you're sitting on your phone. We did get addicted. I don't know. I'm addicted. My son gets crazy. I have a 20-year-old. He kills me. Like, get off your phone. Because you sit and you look at this and you check this, and it's definitely a problem. It's definitely a problem.
yeah no, I agree with you. Yeah, that is so true. I know it's a little bit off topic what we're talking about, but with the approaching women and dancing and those sort of, yeah, it's so true because you
It was
go to
just
these things
interesting. Yeah.
and yeah, it's how many times you get on TikTok or something, you hear this girl talking about, I went out on this date with this guy, and then she starts telling all this stuff, and it's like, well, that guy's screwed. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, that's so true, and yeah, like you said, but with everything, social media, phones, there's a negative side to it, but there's also positive. Like it makes things easier
100%.
for us, and
Yes.
But yeah, I completely agree with it. Kids shouldn't have phones until they're 18, or some sort of
Yeah,
boundary. Whether you decide to give it to them a little
100%.
younger, because it is destroying them. And yeah, but at the same time, I think with being an entrepreneur and talking about emotion and all those things, I think we've talked about great topics today. And
Yeah, a lot
mental
of fun.
health is something we didn't really talk too much about. But I believe when it comes to mental health and like all of this becoming unhealthy, we've kind of spoken about the whole reason how you could get there and stuff, because you don't have boundaries and those sorts of
Yeah.
things. Because with mental health, with men especially, but with everyone, and I'm not someone who's like, I don't even know the word to say, but like thinks everything can lead to mental health problems, because I'm not like that. Like I think it's
Right.
it's definitely an overused thing, that people like to,
Yes,
I guess, whatever.
I
But
agree. It's something, but it's
the,
definitely a crutch a little bit more. But I agree
yep,
with you. I agree with you.
yep,
It
yep,
is something, but it's over. Yeah, 100%.
yep, overused. Yeah, I like it. A crutch, that people use. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of things like that. But the way I like to end this podcast is there one book, podcast, resource that truly impacted your life, changed your mindset, or you think listeners should check out? What would it be and why?
So I don't know if listeners could check it out because and it's probably my mother. My mother's probably my biggest influence, and still today continues to be my biggest influence because she's very strong with mindset, with positivity, with you know, taking your fears out. So I would say that's been my biggest influence and continues to be in helping me on this journey.
Yeah, we got to be thankful for good parents. I know me personally, I've had, great parents. I was adopted, but after all that, like great parents. And it definitely shapes you, changes you, makes you into who you are. And, sometimes when you do see these kids that don't have the best life growing up, I mean, you do feel bad for them in a way, because just the foundation and the lessons that you learned from your parents, and, it is a shame, but I believe with anything, it's how you use it, what you use it. There's so many men out there like you, that can be mentors towards kids, men, women. I know I talk about men a lot, but that's just because I'm a male. But women at the same time,
Yeah,
use
sure.
use the people around you. But I want to thank you for coming on. I think we talked about some great topics.
Yeah,
I
it's
learned.
great. It's funny. I learned, it's so, you could take a situation in life. I know we're wrapping up, but like you were adopted and you had great parents. A lot of people will, and again, my parents got, I could speak about divorce, adoption, I can't, but a lot of people I've spoken to could say, oh, why did I get adopted? My original birth parents didn't like me, blah, 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 blah. And you go down that rabbit hole instead of like, I'm looking at you and you're saying, yeah, I was adopted. I have great parents. You looked at a situation and, and again, going back to the original topic, you remove the emotion. Okay, I'm moving forward. I have a great parents. They love me. They raised me. They took care of me. And unfortunately, people that get stuck in emotion, maybe they're going to their whole lives and dwell on that. I could say to me, hey, how did I grow up? I had no father. I didn't speak to my father for many years. I did later on in my life, and we had a very nice relationship. But for many years, like I said, I never fought. It's not fair. Blah, blah, blah. No, you deal with your situation, you move forward, and there's always good. There's always something good in it. So just as you
Yeah.
mentioned that, I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, and like we talked about at the end of this podcast about the crutch. How many people use that
Yes.
stuff as a crutch their whole life? The
Yeah.
whole reason, and it's one of the reasons I haven't really talked much about me being adopted and stuff, is because I cannot stand when people use those things. And I understand they do affect you. I'm not saying they don't affect you as a person, but like you said, you use it as a crutch, and you don't need to use that your whole entire life. Like the reason that
Right.
you're 30 plus years old, and the reason that you don't do this is because your parents did this to you when you were
Right.
3 years
Right.
old.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like come on now, like that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But no, I agree.
I
I
know
agree.
someone
And
like that. Yeah. Thank you. It was
yeah,
great. Really, really
thank you,
pleasure.
thank you.